Most people believe they need a new job, a new relationship, more money, or a different environment before they can become someone stronger. But the truth is more uncomfortable. You can change your city and still carry the same fear. You can earn more and still feel powerless. You can leave one relationship only to repeat the same patterns in the next. The scenery changes, but the person remains the same. Real transformation does not begin when life finally becomes easier. It begins when the principles governing your mind become stronger than the circumstances surrounding you. The Stoics understood this more than 2,000 years ago. They did not ask how to avoid difficulty. They asked how to become the kind of person difficulty could not control. They knew that character is not built through comfort, but through repeated choices. What you tolerate, what you pursue, what you fear, what you refuse, and what you practice when no one is watching. In this video, you will learn 10 Stoic principles that can completely change who you are. Not by giving you temporary motivation, but by replacing the hidden rules that currently shape your reactions, habits, relationships, and identity. Each principle will take you one step further, from resistance to acceptance, from impulsiveness to control, from dependence on approval to inner authority, and from emotional weakness to a mind that remains steady under pressure. But understand this before we begin. These principles will only change you if you use them. Listening may inspire you. Agreement may comfort you. But practice is what rebuilds a person. So do not watch this as entertainment. Watch it as a confrontation with the person you have been and a decision about the person you are ready to become. Your old identity will not surrender quietly. The philosophy of Stoicism has endured for centuries because it was never designed to make life easier. It was designed to make human beings stronger. While empires rose and fell, wars reshaped civilizations, and fortunes disappeared overnight, Stoic thinkers kept returning to one simple truth. The quality of your life is determined less by what happens to you than by the principles that guide your response. Epictetus was born a slave. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire burdened by war, plague, and political betrayal. Seneca accumulated immense wealth, only to lose favor and face a forced death. Their circumstances were vastly different, yet their conclusions were remarkably similar. None believed that happiness depended on controlling the outside world. All believed that freedom began with mastering the inner one. Modern culture often promises transformation through external change. Buy something new, achieve another goal, find the perfect relationship, build the perfect routine. Yet countless people discover that every achievement simply exposes another emptiness waiting beneath it. The Stoics would not call this failure. They would call it a misunderstanding of where change actually begins. A person's destiny is shaped long before a major decision is made. It is shaped by the invisible principles repeated every single day, the beliefs you protect, the emotions you obey, the habits you tolerate, the standards you refuse to compromise. These quiet patterns slowly become your identity, and your identity eventually becomes your future. That is why this video is not about collecting inspirational quotes or memorizing ancient wisdom. It is about replacing the hidden operating system that silently directs your thoughts, your decisions, and your character. Once those internal principles begin to change, your actions naturally follow. And when your actions change consistently enough, the person you see in the mirror gradually becomes someone you would not have recognized before. Before we explore the first principle, understand what this journey is truly about. These are not 10 isolated ideas that you can pick and choose from whenever they feel convenient. Together, they form a complete philosophy of personal transformation. Each principle strengthens the next, gradually replacing the habits, assumptions, and emotional reactions that have shaped your life until now. Some of these lessons may challenge beliefs you have carried for years. Others may reveal weaknesses you have tried to ignore. That discomfort is not a sign that something is wrong. It is often the first sign that real change has begun. If you stay with this video until the end, you will not simply understand Stoicism better. You will leave with a practical framework for thinking differently, acting more deliberately, and becoming far more resilient in the face of uncertainty, criticism, failure, and success alike. If this is the kind of wisdom you're looking for, subscribe and join us for more timeless Stoic lessons designed to strengthen your mind, one principle at a time. Now, let us begin with the first principle, the one that separates people who spend their lives fighting reality from those who use reality as the foundation for lasting inner strength. Everything else you are about to learn depends on this first shift in perspective. Principle 1. Stop fighting reality. Most suffering does not come from reality itself. It comes from arguing with reality after it has already happened. We replay conversations that cannot be changed, resent circumstances we cannot undo, and waste enormous amounts of energy wishing life had unfolded differently. The more we resist what already exists, the more powerless we become. Imagine someone who loses an important opportunity at work. Instead of asking, "What can I do next?" they spend weeks replaying every mistake, blaming other people, and imagining different outcomes. Their career is no longer being limited by the missed opportunity. It is being limited by their refusal to accept that the opportunity is already gone. Trying to resist reality is like standing in the middle of a river, pushing against the current with your bare hands. The river never stops. Only your strength disappears. Epictetus taught that some things are within our control, while many others are not. Wisdom begins when we stop confusing the two. Acceptance is not surrender. It is the decision to stop wasting energy on battles that can never be won, so that energy can be invested where it actually matters. When the Roman statesman Cato faced political defeat, he did not spend his remaining days complaining about a world that refused to obey him. He accepted what had happened and continued acting according to his principles until the very end. His character remained intact even when his circumstances did not. Ask yourself a simple question whenever life disappoints you. Am I fighting reality, or am I preparing my next action? That single question can interrupt hours of frustration and redirect your attention toward progress instead of resistance. The moment you stop demanding that reality become different, you become free to become different yourself. Your strength no longer depends on perfect circumstances. It depends on your willingness to respond wisely to imperfect ones. And once you stop wasting energy fighting what has already happened, you discover that your greatest challenge is no longer reality itself. It is the way you react to it. That realization leads directly to the second principle. Principle 2. Master your reactions. Life rarely destroys people in a single moment. More often, they are slowly defeated by thousands of uncontrolled reactions. A careless comment ruins an entire day. A small setback creates unnecessary panic. One criticism triggers endless self-doubt. The event itself passes quickly, but the emotional reaction continues long after the moment has ended. Think about someone who receives a harsh email at work. Instead of pausing, they respond immediately with anger. Within minutes, a manageable disagreement becomes a damaged relationship. The original problem was small. The reaction turned it into something much larger. Your emotions are like sparks falling onto dry grass. A single spark is harmless if you notice it early. Ignore it, and it can become a wildfire that consumes everything around it. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that people would often behave selfishly, impatiently, and unfairly. He reflected on this every morning, not because he expected the worst, but because preparation gave him the freedom to choose his response instead of being ruled by surprise. His peace came from readiness, not luck. History records that during times of war, disease, and personal loss, Marcus continued writing calm reflections instead of surrendering to despair. He could not control the empire's problems, but he refused to let those problems control his own mind. That quiet discipline became one of his greatest strengths. The next time something provokes you, create a small space between the event and your response. Take one slow breath. Delay your first impulse. Ask yourself, will this reaction improve my future or only satisfy my emotions for a moment? That pause is where self-mastery begins. A person who controls every situation is powerful. A person who controls themselves in every situation is far more powerful. When your reactions become deliberate instead of automatic, Other people lose the ability to manipulate your emotions. And once your inner world is no longer controlled by every opinion, insult, or disappointment, another question naturally appears. Why do we still give strangers so much power over our self-worth? That is the principle we must confront next. Principle 3. Stop seeking validation. One of the quietest forms of slavery is living for other people's approval. It rarely looks dramatic. Instead, it hides inside everyday decisions. You hesitate before speaking because someone may disagree. You change your goals because they seem more acceptable. You constantly measure your worth through compliments, likes, recognition, or praise. Without realizing it, you allow strangers to decide how valuable you feel. Picture someone who spends hours creating something meaningful, then becomes completely discouraged because it receives little attention online. Nothing about their work has changed. Only other people's reactions have. Yet they begin questioning their own ability simply because external approval failed to arrive. Seeking validation is like standing beneath a window, waiting for someone else to turn on the light before believing the sun has risen. Your confidence becomes dependent on people who cannot even see your full journey. Epictetus warned that if you depend on what belongs to others, you will eventually become their prisoner. Reputation, admiration, and popularity all exist outside your control. Build your identity upon them, and your peace disappears whenever they change. History tells us that Epictetus began life as a slave. He owned almost nothing, yet his students traveled great distances to hear him speak because his confidence came from character rather than status. He never waited for society's permission to become wise. Practice asking yourself a different question each day. Instead of wondering, "Do people approve of me?" ask, "Did I act according to my principles?" That question places your attention back where it belongs, inside your own character. The day you stop chasing approval is the day you begin earning genuine respect. People trust those who stand firmly on their values because they cannot easily be manipulated by praise or criticism. If you're committed to building that kind of inner freedom, comment, "I choose principles over approval." Let that be a promise to yourself, not to anyone else. And once you no longer depend on approval to move forward, you discover something even more important. Lasting growth is sustained not by motivation, but by disciplined action. That is where the next principle begins. Principle 4. Let discipline replace motivation. Many people spend their lives waiting to feel motivated before they begin. They promise themselves they will exercise when they feel energetic, study when inspiration arrives, or finally pursue their goals when confidence appears. Days become months, and months become years. Their greatest obstacle is not a lack of ability. It is their dependence on emotion to create action. Imagine two people with the same dream. One works only when excitement is high. The other shows up every day, even when they feel tired, discouraged, or uninspired. At first, there is little difference between them, but after a year, one has built a new identity while the other is still waiting for the perfect mood to begin. Motivation is like the wind. Sometimes it pushes your sail forward. Sometimes it disappears without warning. Discipline is the anchor that keeps your direction steady regardless of the weather. The Stoics never believed that emotions should determine action. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself that the body may resist difficult work, but reason should remain in command. He understood that excellence is created by repeated choices, not temporary feelings. Even as emperor, Marcus did not have the luxury of working only when he felt inspired. Wars continued, disease spread, and responsibilities never paused. Yet he returned to his duties each day because discipline had become part of his character rather than a response to his emotions. Start making promises that depend only on your actions, not your feelings. Read one page. Walk for 10 minutes. Write one paragraph. Complete one meaningful task before seeking comfort. Small acts repeated consistently reshape your identity far more than occasional bursts of motivation ever can. The person who depends on motivation will always struggle with inconsistency. The person who depends on discipline becomes reliable, and reliability eventually becomes confidence. Once discipline replaces emotion as the force guiding your life, you no longer need to wonder whether you can move forward. Your next challenge becomes protecting the inner peace that discipline helps you create. That is where the fifth principle begins. Principle 5, protect your inner peace. Many people spend years trying to build a successful life while giving almost no attention to protecting a peaceful mind. They believe peace will arrive after they earn more money, solve every problem, or finally receive the recognition they have been chasing. But peace built upon changing circumstances is always temporary. As soon as life changes again, it disappears. Imagine someone who checks their phone every few minutes. One negative headline creates anxiety. A critical message ruins their mood. Other people's achievements trigger comparison. Without realizing it, they have handed control of their emotional state to notifications, opinions, and events they cannot influence. Their mind becomes crowded long before their schedule does. Inner peace is like a quiet garden surrounded by high walls. Every unnecessary argument, every meaningless comparison, and every distraction is an open gate. Leave enough gates open, and chaos eventually walks inside without permission. Seneca believed that a restless mind suffers more from imagination than from reality. He warned against allowing unnecessary worries to occupy the same space where wisdom should grow. Protecting your attention, therefore, is not selfish. It is an essential discipline. Despite his political responsibilities and constant uncertainty, Seneca deliberately created time for reflection, writing, and philosophical practice. He understood that a person who never withdraws from noise will eventually become as restless as the world around them. Begin protecting your peace with small daily boundaries. Spend less time arguing with strangers. Limit information that serves no purpose. Create moments of silence without reaching for a screen. Guard your attention as carefully as you would guard your health, because both determine the quality of your life. The strongest person is not the one who can endure endless chaos. It is the one who knows what deserves entry into their mind and what should remain outside. And once your peace no longer depends on constant external stability, another truth becomes impossible to ignore. Everything you love, every success you achieve, and every season of life will eventually change. Learning to accept that reality is the sixth principle. Principle 6, accept that loss is part of life. One reason people fear change so deeply is that they secretly believe life should allow them to keep everything forever. They want relationships that never end, health that never declines, careers that never fail, and happiness that never fades. Reality offers no such promise. The sooner we accept this, the less power fear has over us. Imagine someone who loses a job they believe defined their identity. At first, it feels as though everything has collapsed, but months later, they discover new opportunities, stronger skills, and a clearer sense of purpose. The loss that once looked like an ending quietly became the beginning of a better direction. What changed was not the event, but the meaning they gave it. Holding on to every season of life is like trying to trap water in your hands. The tighter you squeeze, the faster it slips away. Open your hands, and the water can still refresh you before it continues its journey. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself that everything in nature exists in cycles. Empires rise and fall, bodies grow old, friendships change. Even the greatest achievements eventually become history. Resisting this truth only creates unnecessary suffering. Accepting it allows you to appreciate the present without fearing the future. During years marked by war, plague, and personal tragedy, Marcus lost people he loved and watched parts of his empire decline. Yet he continued serving with dignity because he understood that grief and purpose can exist together. Acceptance did not remove his pain. It prevented pain from destroying his character. When life takes something from you, pause before asking, "Why did this happen to me?" Instead ask, "Who can I become because of this?" That single shift transforms loss from an enemy into a teacher. If you choose to face change with courage instead of resentment, comment, "I grow through every season." Let those words remind you that your character can continue growing even when life is changing. And once you stop fearing what can be lost, you become free to focus on what can never be taken away: your character. That is where the seventh principle begins. Principle 7. Choose character over comfort. Every day, life quietly presents the same choice. Do what is comfortable or do what is right. Comfort promises immediate relief. Character demands effort. That is why so many people slowly drift away from the person they hope to become. Not because they make one terrible decision, but because they repeatedly choose what feels easy over what builds integrity. Those small decisions rarely seem important in the moment, yet they quietly determine the direction of an entire life. Imagine someone who notices a mistake at work that no one else has seen. Admitting it may be embarrassing, while staying silent seems harmless. Choosing comfort protects their image for a moment. Choosing character protects their identity for a lifetime. The consequences of that decision extend far beyond the workplace, because every honest action strengthens the habit of becoming an honest person. Integrity is never built through grand gestures. It is built through ordinary choices made when no one is watching. Character is like a tree growing on the side of a mountain. Strong winds do not weaken it. They force its roots to grow deeper. The harsher the conditions become, the stronger its foundation develops. Comfort avoids resistance. Character grows because of it. The Stoics believed that virtue was the highest good because it was the only possession that fortune could never take away. Wealth can disappear, health can decline, reputation can change overnight. But a person who consistently acts with courage, justice, wisdom, and self-control carries those qualities everywhere they go. External success may come and go, but inner character continues to guide every decision. Cato became respected throughout Rome, not because he pursued popularity, but because he refused to compromise his principles, even when compromise would have made his life easier. His influence came from moral consistency rather than political convenience. People trusted him because they always knew where he stood. Before every important decision, pause and ask yourself, will this make my life easier today or make my character stronger tomorrow? That single question creates space between impulse and wisdom. Over time, those moments of reflection become habits, and those habits slowly become your identity. When character becomes your highest priority, success stops being measured by what you gain and starts being measured by who you become. From that moment forward, life no longer feels like a race to collect more. It becomes a daily practice of becoming better. And after building a life rooted in character instead of comfort, one final attachment still remains: the desire to control everything around us. Releasing that illusion is the next principle on the path toward lasting freedom. Principle 8. Control less, trust more. Many people exhaust themselves trying to control outcomes that have never truly belonged to them. They try to manage other people's opinions, predict every future problem, eliminate every uncertainty, and guarantee that nothing will ever go wrong. Instead of creating security, this endless need for control produces constant anxiety. The more tightly they try to hold life in place, the more restless and exhausted they become because reality refuses to obey anyone's expectations. Imagine someone preparing for an important presentation. They rehearse carefully, organize every detail, and arrive fully prepared. Yet instead of feeling confident, they spend the final hours worrying about questions they cannot predict, reactions they cannot influence, and events they cannot prevent. Their preparation is complete, but their mind remains trapped by the impossible task of controlling the uncontrollable. As a result, they walk into the room carrying fear instead of confidence, even though they have already done everything within their power. Trying to control every outcome is like gripping a handful of sand. The tighter your fingers close, the faster the sand escapes. Relax your grip, and far more remains in your hand. Peace comes not from holding tighter, but from knowing when to let go. Epictetus repeatedly reminded his students that peace begins by recognizing the boundary between what belongs to us and what does not. Our choices belong to us. Our effort belongs to us. Our character belongs to us. Results, timing, and other people's judgments do not. Confusing these categories guarantees frustration. Separating them restores clarity, responsibility, and inner freedom. As a former slave, Epictetus experienced circumstances that were often beyond his control. Yet he refused to surrender his inner freedom because he understood that no external power could force him to abandon wisdom, courage, or self-respect. His body could be restrained, but his judgment remained his own. That inner freedom became the foundation of everything he later taught. Practice ending each day with two simple questions. Did I control what was mine to control? And did I peacefully release what never belonged to me? Those questions gradually retrain the mind to focus on responsibility instead of obsession. Little by little, they replace anxiety with trust and constant tension with quiet confidence. Ironically, people become more effective when they stop trying to control everything. Their attention shifts toward preparation, presence, and wise action, allowing better decisions to emerge naturally. They stop wasting energy, fighting uncertainty, and begin investing it where it can actually make a difference. Once you trust yourself to handle whatever life brings instead of demanding certainty before acting, fear begins to lose its grip. And when fear loses its grip, time itself becomes impossible to ignore. That realization opens the ninth principle. Principle 9. Live as if time is running out. One of the greatest illusions is believing that there will always be more time. More time to begin, more time to forgive, more time to become disciplined, more time to chase the life you truly want. But every day quietly proves the opposite. Time never pauses, negotiates, or waits for anyone to feel ready. Imagine a person who has dreamed of starting a business for 10 years. Every year they promise themselves they will begin after one more promotion, one more course, or one more perfect opportunity. Eventually, they realized that the greatest obstacle was never a lack of resources. It was the habit of postponing the life they wanted to live. Years passed while they were preparing for a future that never seemed to arrive. Time is like an hourglass that never stops turning. You cannot flip it over, slow the sand, or recover the grains that have already fallen. The only choice you have is how wisely you use the sand that remains. Every grain that falls is another reminder that delay has a cost. Seneca wrote that life is not short because we are given too little time. It feels short because we waste so much of it. He believed that people carefully protect their money while giving away their days without noticing that time is the only resource that can never be earned back. Although Seneca lived under constant political uncertainty, he continued writing, reflecting, and preparing his mind each day. He refused to postpone the work of becoming wiser because he understood that tomorrow is never guaranteed. His philosophy was not built on fear of death, but on respect for the value of each day. At the end of each day, ask yourself one uncomfortable question. If today could not be repeated, did I spend it becoming the person I want to be? Let that question guide tomorrow's choices before tomorrow becomes another yesterday. You do not need a perfect day. You simply need one more day that moves you in the right direction. When you treat time as your most valuable possession, your priorities begin to change naturally. Petty arguments lose importance. Endless distractions become easier to ignore. Meaningful actions become impossible to postpone. You stop counting how much time you have left and start making better use of the time you already have. And once you fully understand that your time is limited, only one question remains. Who will you become with the time you still have? The answer to that question is the final principle. Principle 10. Become the person nothing can shake. Every principle we have explored leads to this final destination. Accept reality. Master your reactions. Stop chasing approval. Build discipline. Protect your peace. Accept loss. Choose character. Release the illusion of control. Honor your time. None of these principles exist on their own. Together, they create a person whose stability no longer depends on circumstances. Imagine two people facing the same crisis. Both lose something important. Both experience disappointment, uncertainty, and fear. One immediately falls apart because their identity was built upon external conditions. The other feels the same pain but remains steady because their identity was built upon principles that circumstances cannot take away. The difference is not luck. It is the foundation they spent years building. Long before the crisis arrived, they had already decided what kind of person they would become. A lighthouse cannot stop the storm, calm the waves, or change the wind. Its purpose is far greater. It stands firmly in the darkness so that others do not lose their direction. A principled person serves the same role. They do not control life. They remain steady within it. Their greatest strength is not avoiding difficulty, but refusing to be moved by it. Marcus Aurelius never claimed that philosophy would remove hardship. Instead, he treated every challenge as another opportunity to practice wisdom, courage, justice, and self-control. His greatness was not found in avoiding suffering, but in refusing to let suffering define his character. Long after his victories and political decisions faded into history, Marcus is still remembered because of the principles he lived by. His example reminds us that influence built upon character lasts far longer than influence built upon power or success. Principles leave a legacy that circumstances never can. Do not ask whether life will become easier after this video. Ask whether you will become stronger. Easier circumstances create temporary comfort. Stronger character creates lasting freedom. Real transformation happens quietly. It appears in the conversation where you remain calm, the disappointment you accept without bitterness, the temptation you refuse, the difficult decision you make because it is right instead of easy. Those moments may seem small, but together they shape the person you become. Day after day, they quietly build an identity that no setback, criticism, failure, or success can easily shake. And that is the greatest lesson Stoicism offers. You cannot control the world, but you can become someone the world can no longer control. You began this journey looking for principles that could change your life. But the deeper truth is that these principles were never meant to change your life first. They were meant to change you. When you stop fighting reality, you stop wasting your strength. When you master your reactions, you reclaim your freedom. When you stop seeking approval, your confidence comes from within. When discipline replaces motivation, consistency replaces excuses. When you protect your inner peace, the outside world loses its power over your mind. When you accept loss, fear no longer controls your future. When you choose character over comfort, integrity becomes your greatest achievement. When you release the illusion of control, your energy returns to what truly matters. And when you treat time as your most valuable possession, every ordinary day becomes an opportunity to build the person you were meant to become. None of these principles promise a perfect life. Stoicism has never made that promise. Instead, it offers something far greater. It helps you become the kind of person who remains calm in chaos, steady in uncertainty, and faithful to your values no matter what happens around you. Perhaps nothing dramatic will happen tomorrow. The world may look exactly the same. But if you begin living by these principles, something far more important will begin to change. Your decisions will become wiser. Your emotions will become steadier. Your relationships will become healthier. And over time, you will quietly become someone your past self would barely recognize. That transformation will not happen because life finally becomes fair. It will happen because your principles become stronger than your circumstances. That is how real transformation happens, not through one extraordinary moment, but through ordinary choices repeated every single day. If these Stoic principles helped you see yourself in a new way, subscribe and join us for more timeless wisdom that strengthens the mind and shapes lasting character. Now I'd love to hear from you. Which of these 10 principles will you begin practicing today, and why? Because the person you become tomorrow is being shaped by the principles you choose to live by today.